Welcome to the 2024 Meet the Candidates Night, presented by the Williamsville PTSA Council and the League of Women Voters. I'm Claire Salick, along with Sarah Smith from the Williamsville PTA Council.
And hello, I'm Lori Robinson from the League of Women Voters of Buffalo, Niagara. And I'm delighted to be here again this year. We have 3 open positions on the Williamsville Board of Education for 3-year terms. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League works to influence public policy through education and advocacy. Moderating school board candidate meetings is only one of our many functions, and membership is open to everyone. The League is not for women only. The W stands for wise. So you can learn more about the League at our website, and I also have a QR code and some information on the upcoming elections in the back of the room. So let's get on to it. Ground rules for our candidate forums. The League of Women Voters of Buffalo, Niagara will not permit substitutes for candidates at debates or forums as conducted by the League. Presentations should be strictly confined to issues, not personalities. And the order of opening statements has been determined by the order in which the candidates' names appear on the current election ballot. I believe there's a table outside with any election information regarding the candidates, and we hope this event will be over by 9 p.m. The Williamsville schools will make the only authorized recording of this event, and only licensed media, including TV, radio, and newspapers, are entitled to air a portion of the recordings, in keeping with the Federal Communications Commission regulations. All others who air this recording may do so only in its entirety, and no one is permitted to publicly display edited footage in any manner. We request that audience members turn off their cell phones at this time and keep them turned off throughout the event. We also request that you refrain from applause until the forum is completed. We seek to provide all candidates with the greatest amount of time to answer questions. So the format for tonight's forum. Sarah is going to be our timekeeper. She will raise a yellow paddle when the speaker has 20 seconds left, and a red stop paddle when time has expired. The candidates are expected to stop talking when completing the sentence being spoken. We'll have opening statements. Each candidate shall have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Biographical sketches and a platform outlined are usually presented, and candidates will speak in the order of their names on the ballot. Each candidate shall have 2 minutes to respond to each question. I will be asking written questions submitted by members of the live audience, alternating with pre-submitted questions from the online PTSA Council Google form. Claire is collecting the questions and will screen them for any vulgarity, profanity, appropriateness, and redundancy. The questions must be directed to all candidates, and questions will be asked of candidates in rotating order. And then we'll have our closing statements, and each candidate will be allowed 3 minutes for a closing statement to summarize thoughts or reiterate points brought forth during the meeting. This forum is designed to be a dialogue between the audience and candidates. This is not a debate. And we're going to get right into it. So I will announce each candidate only for his or her opening statements. I'll be happy to repeat any questions if you need me to when it's your time to respond. And it is important that each one uses only as much time as needed to respond to questions. If you don't need your whole 2 minutes, we can move on to the next person. So let's get started. We're going to start with Dr. Littman, and your 2 minutes for your opening statement.
I would like to thank the PTSA and the League of Women Voters. I listen and I care. I have devoted my life and career to improve education. This is not about the me, but the we. We must work together to develop our students to be their best. It takes a community who values the input from all stakeholders to provide a well-rounded, high-quality education for all students. It takes a Board of Education to guide the process of providing a well-rounded, high-quality education for all. When I returned to the board in 2021, it was to provide a stability and balance that was missing Now, the Board of Education is a stable, well-functioning unit, and I would like to serve my last term with the colleagues I have watched develop over the past 3 years. As the longest-serving board member, I bring a history of accomplishments in teacher professional development, class size reductions, and the resources for teachers to do their best for our students. For students, we've had enhanced academic offerings, stronger mental health resources, capital projects to improve school safety, technological infrastructure, music and athletic facilities, ELL growth, and occupational programs. For the community, serving on the Financial Audit Committee and providing fiscally responsible budgets that meet our student needs for high-quality academics and extracurriculars. Most recently, it has been our focus on DEI, academic support programs, mental health support, and a refocusing on meeting the needs of special ed students. I'm a student-focused consensus builder with strong communication skills who listens. I have lived with a passion for education instilled by my beloved parents. As a former board president, a proud parent of 2 North graduates with graduate degrees, contributing locally, and as members and a member of the Amherst Board of Education with 47 years in education, I'm running to enhance data-driven decision-making. Thank you.
Mr. Danielson?
Hello, my name is Phil Danielson, and I ask for your vote. When I moved my family to Buffalo for work 12 years ago, we wanted excellent education and looked at the top districts in Metro Buffalo. In many ways, I'm thankful that we landed here in the Williamsville district. I think the education here in Williamsville is good, but it can be better. Public education is an amazing privilege. Some countries in the world will not allow girls to go to school. Others may not have it at all. The first public schools in America were established by the Puritans in New England during the 17th century. Teach the general public to read. This is a powerful equipping and equalizing enabler. Over 400 years ago, a good legacy. Our students must continue to show up, pay attention, learn, and do their homework to equip themselves to be virtuous citizens contributing to our world. The role of the school board oversight is threefold: curriculum, budget, and the superintendent. Curriculum. I've been into the schools a number of times over the years to discuss curriculum with the teacher, often with the subject specialist and the principal present. Twice I've taken the topic to the state level to influence the course content as the state provides materials. I've also presented to the school board. We must pay attention to what is taught, ensure it is true, accurate, and effective. I look forward to sharing some examples through our time tonight. Budget. I'm a project manager, and I've worked with, built, managed budgets for over 30 years for major corporations. Our public schools are funded by our tax dollars and should be spent with a stewardship mindset to care for what we have and plan for what comes next. Superintendent. The school superintendent works for the board and for you. We need to ensure he best represents the majority view of us, the community of Williamsville Central School District, solid academics, a majority view moral curriculum and environment. I look forward to our engagement in the coming session to discuss what is on your mind. Thank you.
Ms. Poulin?
Yes, I'm Maureen Poulin. I want to give you a little background of myself, of what I bring to the reelection for board. I have 31 years of experience and skills as a teacher, a counselor, a special education case manager, and a principal. So I've been in schools for all of my life. I'm an involved mom and a grandmother of 2 Williamsville students who give me the ear of the day-to-day experiences and the joys and challenges our students face. I've now served 3 years on the school board and have taken opportunities to grow in my understanding of how school boards can best work to support our students. I was invited to participate in Governor Hochul's Youth Mental Health Summit last summer and have attended the State Leadership in Education event. Just this week, I had the opportunity to attend an summit workshop on artificial intelligence as a new frontier for our school district policies. I've advocated with our state legislatures. I've received Rising Star Award from the county for the last 2 years. I have visited every school in our district multiple times and created positive relationships with parents, teachers, staff, administrators, and board members. In addition, I'm a good communicator. I have a commitment to lifelong learning, and I'm a creative problem solver and a team builder. These are the experiences, skills, attributes that I bring to the table as a candidate for re-election to the Williamsville School Board.
Go ahead. Mr. Asua.
Suna.
Asu.
First and foremost, I would like to thank the PTSA Council and the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. My name is Indelo Suna, and I'm running for a school board position for the Williamsville Central School District. I'm an attorney at Goldberg Segala in downtown Buffalo. I'm a father of 2 children in the district. My son is a 3rd grader at Forest Elementary, and my daughter is a 1st grader at the Summit Center. I'm a board member of the Williamsville Special Education PTSA and incoming co-president for the Williamsville PTSA Council. I am also a member of the Summit Center's fundraising community, which raises money for children with autism within our community. I am also a voting member of the Amherst Youth and Community Coalition, which collaborates to support positive youth development efforts throughout the town of Amherst. I also coach youth basketball and baseball for the Independent Health YMCA and Central Amherst Little League. I previously was a parent member of the district's Nutrition and Wellness Committee. With family in Puerto Rico, I speak and write Spanish fluently. Historically, the board has not had many minority members. If elected, I would be one of the few, if not first, Puerto Rican board members. In a district that is actively promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is important. Prior to being an attorney, I was a substitute teacher assisting students in grades K through 12. I was also a coordinator in a federally funded program called Safe Schools, Healthy Students. In that role, I was tasked with assisting underprivileged students in grades 3 through 5 in an after-school setting. I believe that we have a great school district, and if elected to the board, I would help expand on all the initiatives and programs offered to teachers, students, and parents. My main focus would be to help improve the special education system in our district. As a father of a child with autism, I understand firsthand the issues that parents face when seeking services for their children. My goal would be to eliminate some of the burdens those parents face when advocating on behalf of their children and to help promote inclusion of children with special needs within our district. Thank you.
Ms. Fletch.
Hi, my name is Dawn Fletch. I am a mom, a wife. I have 2 kids in the district. My daughter graduated last year from North. My son is a freshman at North. I've been involved in the PTA, PTSA since my daughter was in kindergarten, Dodge, Casey, North, and the PTSA Council, and I've been on different committees throughout the district. I know that in this district, we stress equity, and I feel that everybody has an area that they feel really passionate about, and I, of course, do too, but I feel it is really important as a school board member to be the voice for the entire district and all of the students, not just one area. Anybody that knows me, I think will tell you that I am always honest. I'm fair. I'm open to constructive criticism, but I will also stand by what I believe. And I think it's important for the school board to have people that aren't swayed by others' opinions on it. I look forward to being elected. So.
Thank you. Dr. Singh.
Good evening. Thank you again for PTSA Council and the League of Wise Voters for organizing the candidates night tonight. And thanks to all the people who showed up in person and watching virtually today's program. My name is Swaroop Singh, and I am candidate 6A. And this is my 3rd year on the board. And 2 years I've been in leadership position. Last year I was the board vice president, and this year I am the board president. My younger daughter is in transit, and my older daughter graduated last year, and they're both sitting right there. And I've been a member of this wonderful Williamsville community for the past 13 years. And it was the best move we ever did. I have 3 graduate degrees. I think it's one too many, but you can say I love learning, and I love to learn something new every day. So if I'm sitting in the boardroom and there's a professional development opportunity, I'm going to grab it. Anyway, coming back. I have a PhD from the University of North Carolina in science and the MBA from University of Buffalo in business administration. So you can say I have background in both, which can come handy in looking at the school curriculum and other school projects. I'm currently working in finance in Citibank, and I worked earlier as a biomedical scientist in Roswell Park for over 10 years. I served on numerous committees in the community, as well as school-based communities before joining the board. As a board member, I serve on the district-wide strategic planning committee, the audit committee, and the DEI committee. I also serve on the NISBA, New York State School Board Association, DEI committee, and I was awarded a certificate for recognition. When I ran for board 3 years earlier, almost time, my priorities were for additional health supports, mental health, DEI, and environmental education, and it still is. Sorry, time's up.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, let's get into some questions here. Again, we'll start with Dr. Lipman. And first question. It's kind of a two-part, different for incumbents versus new candidates, but which of the schools are you a school board liaison for? And what have you gained from attending those meetings? If you're a new candidate, are you aware of this responsibility? And if so, what do you hope to gain from this important responsibility? Go ahead.
Great. It's a good starting question because it takes us right into what we have to do. This year, I am at Heim Middle, and I am at Maple West, the Maple East. Oh, I end up at both of them on occasion. But last year I was at Heim Al, and through the many years I've done everything. I've been worked within a high council and most of the PTAs, except at the high school level. Leave it to others. But I think what you gain is a chance to interact with parents and the faculty, because each school has a faculty representative and the administration, and you get the opportunity to learn more about what's going on in the schools. You learn more about the needs of the schools and how hard the PTA people work. I say that because I've been involved in PTA for many years. Like some of my colleagues here, I was a PTA president at Heim Middle many years ago. I've been a treasurer. I've been involved in membership. I've been in most of those positions. And we do all the school events, so you're a little empathetic about that. But I think what you learn is how hard as a board liaison, PTA or PTSA parents work to do things for their children and other children. And as a board member, being involved in some of those things, some of the years I've scooped ice cream, I sprayed whipped cream on more on ice cream than young people. But the idea is that two things. You interact with the parents, and second, you interact more with what is going on in the schools, and you can have that two-way communication.
Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, no, I, as a new member on the board, I think it'll be great. Schools are where it happens. And to walk in the door, to encounter the energy in the rooms, to see maybe even, I don't know, are we allowed to see the teachers in action? Are we ever allowed into classrooms? If that's possible. Again, I think that's a great dynamic. I'm an advocate of master teachers, teachers that engage the student to a level that it ignites a desire to learn, maybe even a particular desire to learn, right? Because through these formative years, and like I tell my girls, if you hate a particular subject and do poorly in it, don't get a job in that spot. And master teachers, I think, have a way to ignite passion, whether it's math, whether it's music, whether it's art, to be able to generate that energy of the student where they start seeing this is where I need to go. And so I do look forward to being in the schools even more, certainly as a parent, concerts, various events. They had a craft fair at Casey just recently, and my daughter was putting together a craft, right? And getting the opportunity even to talk to her about, okay, you got to look at your expenses, and then you got a price, And then at the end, you take a look at the money and you got to take out the expenses to then be able to see how you did. And I'm glad to say 2 years in a row, they've turned a profit. She and her buddies have done a profit. And so those are great learning experiences. And so I really look forward to the opportunity to be in the schools. Thank you.
Hi, as a liaison to the schools, I've been most closely associated with Forest Elementary School. I have also served with Country Parkway Elementary School. In addition, I've served as a liaison to the Superintendent's Advisory Council for our high school students. And at the Erie County School Board's level, I am a delegate to their delegate assembly. So there are lots of different liaison opportunities. And as Dr. Lippman commented, it is definitely about enhancing two-way communication. When I go to the Forest PTA meetings, I represent the board. And so I share with the PTA members who are there the action and the work of the board from the previous school board meeting. So they also then have the opportunity to ask questions about some of the actions. I also have the opportunity to remind them, like this past month, we had our first reading of the Code of Conduct, and we have an open window for community members to respond to the Code of Conduct, which is open still, and people can comment on that. And I can remind people to do those things. As they ask me questions, I can bring those questions back if I don't have answers to them. So the two-way communication is definitely a major part of that responsibility and that role. And it brings a lot of great joy to get involved and to be seen as a member of their community, I think is a big part of that as well. As Dr. Lippman said, he scooped ice cream. I register people for the Forest Run. So that's how we've been doing that. And they are greatly rewarding experiences.
So since I'm not on the board, my understanding of a school board liaison is you're someone that kind of serves as a bridge between the school and the board and the superintendent. You work with parents at the schools and discuss concerns that they may have and bring those concerns to the board or to the superintendent. I am part of SEPSTA. I'm on the board of SEPSTA, and SEPSTA is a district-wide PTA. We represent every child in the district, not just children, that are in special ed classes, but, children with, mental health disorders, LGBTQ community, and other types of disorders. So I work with several PTAs. I'm also part of the PTSA Council, where PTA leaders come to meetings once a month and express, the concerns they have. So in a way, I've worked with, all the PTAs, and I would look forward to being a board liaison for a school. And I am involved in Forest Elementary as well. I've also handed out shirts at Forest Run and, volunteered for their ice cream socials. And if elected to the board, I would be very excited to be a board liaison for a school. Thanks.
So I have so much to say on this. I am the person that is always encouraging people to join the PTA or PTSA. I think that parents, it's the best way to get involved. And I have, as I mentioned, the 3 schools, I've had really great liaisons. We had Teresa Leatherbarrow for Dodge, Sue Van Slice was Casey, and Stu is our North liaison. And it's great because we can ask questions, he'll share what's going on. And I think a lot of people may not come to board meetings, so that's really their only person that they can, connect with the face of the board. So I think it's so important. And whenever somebody from the board wasn't at one of the meetings, we were always so disappointed because we really enjoy having them there. So I would be very excited to be involved again in a different capacity.
I mean, being on a board, we have multiple opportunities to be a liaison for committees, for schools. I have been a liaison for transit, where my daughters went to school, and for East High. And just like what Don just mentioned just a few minutes back, like most, as far as I haven't seen, not all parents have the opportunities to sit and listen through board meetings or even see the video recordings. So this is a good opportunity for them to get a recap of what they missed. So when you go to PTA meetings in school, you give them a recap of what they missed. And if they have questions, they ask you. And if you can answer, you answer them. And if you don't, you bring it to the superintendent, who will reach out to them with answers. That's the gist of what really happens at the PTA or PTSA meetings. And apart from that, the parents reach out to you in other ways too. They reach out via emails to you because you are the liaison for their school. And if they have questions, then you take it up to the leadership or the administration, and they respond actually very promptly. And in addition to being a liaison for schools, I also serve as a liaison for the DEI committees, the DEI calendar committees, and the NISPA committees, DEI committees. So if you join the board, there are multiple opportunities you have to serve as a liaison. And I would suggest you, any candidates here who get elected, to sign up for as many as you can, because there's so much opportunity to learn.
All right. Okay, we have question number 2. Mr. Danielson, you'll start with this one. Okay, as a school board member, what would you do to promote and support equity, particularly at the 3 high schools, in academics, academic extracurricular activities, and sports? And please be specific.
Sure. Maybe I'll start with a quote that I was going to finish with in my statement from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think the equity is there. We need to care for one another, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Thankfully, right, our Civil War 150 years ago ended slavery. We have freedom. We have equality. We need to make the most of it. And so then within the sports tryout, the best should make the team. For any clubs where achievement is required, the top should be in there. If new clubs want to be formed with the appropriate approval of the district, form them. And so I really think, again, even for my opening remark, talking about public education, what an amazing equalizer, what an amazing leveler. We live in the Williamsville district. Encourage your kids to come. Encourage your kids to do their homework. Encourage your kids to do their best, and we'll all be better for it.
That is a topic that is very dear to my heart, the equity piece of that. And it's a very, very hard concept to wrap our heads around, because equity and equality aren't necessarily the same. And so when we're looking at particularly our 3 high schools, there's a great disparity just in the size of our high schools. And sometimes the size of a building affords greater opportunities than on both sides. Sometimes when it's smaller, there are greater opportunities in some ways, and when they're larger, there are greater opportunities in other ways. And so looking at how do we try to make sure that there are opportunities for everyone in an equitable basis. And I will use an example of kind of where we have made some strides in that. We have had a procedure, I don't think it's a policy, so I will say it's a procedure, that in order for a particular class section to exist in our high schools, they have to have at least 15 students that will be willing to take that course. And in one of our schools, we didn't reach that level of participation. But then when we started to look back at how does that compare to the ratio of the percentage of students in terms of class size, what we were looking at was creating an inequity. Because in one school where you have 500 kids, perhaps a 15 is one percentage, but if you only have 200 in another school, 15 is a different percentage. So we had to change how we look at those things. And that's just one thing, but we do have to look at those inequities.
All right, go ahead, Nick.
Um,
I can repeat a question.
yes, please.
As a school board member, what would you do to promote and support equity, particularly at the 3 high schools in academics, academic extracurricular activities, and sports?
Okay. So I think the main thing is that, you know, we need the kids should see themselves in the classroom. We need strong partnerships, visualize successful futures for all students, and provide a sense of belonging and self-worth. We need to provide a welcoming and affirming environment. I agree with Ms. Poulin that, you know, we need to understand that equity is not the same as equality. Equity means everyone is provided specific resources they need to be successful, while equality means everyone is treated the same exact way, regardless of differences and specific needs. I, recently, graded essays for high school students seeking a scholarship. And I guess an example of, equity in the high schools is, a student, raised a concern regarding hygiene products being in the high schools, that there was a lack of hygiene products. We need to be better at that. And that's a way to be more equitable. It's a specific group of people that has a need, and we need to address that need. So, the big thing is making sure that it's not on an equal basis, but an equitable basis. Thanks.
So I'm really thinking about the question, and without, Maureen gave really good examples from being involved in the board and being able to, have that specific example. So I'm trying to think just based on my own personal experiences. The one thing pops in my mind, I mean, maybe this isn't a big thing, but it sort of is. So I've noticed that when you are in elementary school, you are given an iPad. When you are in the middle school, everybody gets a Chromebook. Then when you get to the high school, you don't have anything. Mm-hmm. And I think that is really a problem because not everybody has one at home. So if we're talking about, being equitable, I think that we have to really make sure that everybody has a fair playing ground, if you will. And I know that there are some Chromebooks that can be used, but from what I hear from talking to many students and teachers, they don't always work. They're not in the best of shape. So I think we really need to look and make sure just those basic things are being met. As far as sports, I mean, I don't know. From when I was in high school, I feel like there's so many sports and there's so many clubs. And again, I'm speaking from North is where I have the most experience. I feel that if sports isn't your thing, I think there's something that you can find. And I don't know who said this, and maybe if there's something that you really enjoy and there isn't, then you talk about making a club. Like, for instance, I know flag football is something that's new in the district, and it's huge. It's been super exciting. So I think I really think we're very fortunate in all of our high schools that there is plenty of things to choose from.
I'm sorry. I have a quote I heard from my daughter a long time back when she was into Percy Jackson books. It said, fairness does not mean everyone gets the same. Fairness means everyone gets what they need. And in this case, I think fairness kind of equates with equity. This was a quote actually I used when I had the debate candidates night 3 years ago. I believed it then, I still believe it now. And if we're sitting on the school board, whenever we have any questions regarding programs in high school, I have two questions that always come to my mind. Will this benefit all students equitably, be it academics, be it sports, or will this decision open or close doors of opportunity for them? So that's my rationale behind the way I vote or the way I sit and decide on the school board. And one way we get information on how the equity is represented in the school is through the school annual disciplinary report. That way we get an idea of how you break it down by student characteristics like race, disability, ethnicity, family wealth, first language. And then you can see the pattern of how students of different backgrounds fare in the report. That's a good benchmark to start your work on. It could be in any sports or in academics. So as a board member, if I'm elected back to the board, my goal would be to review and provide oversight to the annual disciplinary report to identify areas of concern and district-wide hiring practices. We need more diversity in our teaching staff as well. I would also support professional development, which we currently do. I would continue to support it. And for teachers and staff to identify and deal cultural biases and ensure that we have money for it. As a board member, I would vote on any budget allocations for this.
Okay, Dr. Lippman.
Yes, get the last one. It's nice to hear all of my colleagues speak very clearly about what they believe. Again, you're talking about how do we promote and support equity individually and as a board. I mean, the board is responsible for the resources that are allocated to schools, and then the schools kind of organize. You know, as a marketer, I look at it, equity is an opportunity. What we want to do as a school is to have opportunities for all to be the people they want to be. And we in Williamsville do offer many opportunities, as the question was stated about the academic part of it and the extracurriculars and the sports. I think the key thing is that as individual teachers and individual schools look at the groups of students they have and their needs, then they design, as we mentioned, new clubs. But just starting academically, there are some students who might want to dual enroll in a college course, and having that available at all the schools is valuable. There are other students who might need some extra support and guidance to go through the classes they have. So having those resources available in sports, again, offering a variety of things. I always think back of my earlier years on the board when we started women's ice hockey and modified volleyball, and a number of opportunities for our students who didn't have those opportunities before. And the same with extracurricular. We have an outstanding teaching staff. Many teachers go out and do the extra work so that our students have the outside resources and the outside clubs and things that they need to make them become who they want to be. So it's good to be in a supportive district.
Great. Okay. All right. Let's get to the next, excuse me, the next question. We're going to start with Maureen. What are appropriate guidelines that you would propose for the discussion of the following topics by teachers and students in the classroom? Racism, affirmative action, historical discrimination, B, Israeli and Palestine perspectives and viewpoints, and C, sexual identities and preferences.
Can you read that again?
Sure.
That's a lot.
What are appropriate guidelines that you would propose for the discussion of the following topics by teachers and students in the classroom?
And then the topics.
Topics, well, racism, affirmative action, historical discrimination, Israeli and Palestine perspectives and viewpoints, and sexual identities and preferences.
We have 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, to start, we as the school board don't generally create those guidelines. We start with the standards that come from the state education department for curriculum. And we would develop a process which involves teachers and parents in examining those topics when we look at our curriculum. So we have a curriculum adoption, and that's done by committee, not by school board. So the committee works with our administrative staff to take the standards, and so it's a community-based process of developing guidelines and content for how do we meet the state standards around those topics. And we always are looking at what is age-appropriate material for meeting those standards. So the guidelines have to come from the community. And that's our teachers and our parents working in committee. A personal bias is, yes, we have to make sure that it's fair, representative of the truth of everyone, and that we are providing equitable and respect to all peoples in any of those particular situations. So respect and dignity are afforded to everyone based on their particular way that they identify.
Yeah, I guess I'll echo what Maureen said. It's my understanding that I guess that's kind of a curriculum question. And it's my understanding that there's a curriculum council that brings forth, proposed changes to a curriculum, and it's the board's responsibility to either accept or reject those proposed changes. Those are all very sensitive topics, and obviously you don't want to not allow students to discuss those topics. So I think, there just has to be guidelines put in place in terms of being respectful, being mindful of different viewpoints, and being fair to all different viewpoints. But you got to be mindful of the guidelines that are also set forth by the state and what the state allows and what it doesn't allow, and make sure you follow those guidelines. But I don't think that we shouldn't discuss these topics, because it's important for children to discuss these topics in the classroom, and learn from each other and learn different, different ways of thinking, and question the different ways of thinking. Keep it an open forum, but be respectful with it. Thanks.
Just repeat the first part of the question.
Sure. What are appropriate guidelines that you would propose for the discussion of those topics by teachers and students in the classroom?
Sure. So again, looking at what the Board of Education is responsible for, to echo what you have said, that isn't something that necessarily falls under, and I think it's really, I think those are all very important, very sensitive topics. And I think that you have to be really careful not to let your personal opinions answer this question too, because I feel like it's not a board question. Does that make sense? But again, everybody has a right to discussions, as long as they are age, like you said, age appropriate, fair, and not biased. A discussion is very different than putting your opinions and viewpoints on someone. Does that make sense? That's a very hard question.
Yes, it's a hard question. I agree with almost everything that Maureen said on this. Like the board has a by itself is a very strong proponent of student voice. We would love to hear student opinions on a lot of things, but when it comes to discussions or interactions in the classroom, we follow the guidelines that are set up by our curriculum council and the curriculum that is approved by the board. At the board meetings, when the curriculum does come up, there is a discussion on how appropriate it is, and if there are any questions, we do ask the curriculum committee for clarifications. But it's not in our purview to decide what topics can or cannot be discussed in the classroom.
I think there's a show where you can call a friend, and I see Mr. Bulin out there, and I know this is his kind of area of study, but I'll add my issue. And I agree with my colleagues that, the Board of Education does a number of things. This is sort of a micro classroom issue. There are state guidelines and student learning outcomes that all grade levels have in these areas. Yes, these are sensitive areas. I would have added anti-Semitism to that is another area. But I think it all goes back to the instructor in the classroom, their ability to have a civil discourse with their students. And the key thing to me is the sign, as I always tell my students, the sign of an educated person is somebody who could understand all sides of an issue, that you should have the ability to understand that people have different viewpoints and have different backgrounds, and you should be accepting. That's what a good person does. A person of good character knows that people are different, and that's fine. It's like I always tell my students, well, I may be a Red Sox fan, and you may be a Yankees fan. We have a different opinion, but we're not going to fight about it. What we'll do is we'll sit down and we'll have a cup of coffee and enjoy the game. And it's the same thing here. You have to understand that people do have different viewpoints. People should have the opportunity to express those viewpoints in a guided way. And again, but from a micro standpoint, the Board of Education, does not kind of micromanage that part of it.
I'm going to start with a statement I've used a couple times already. Hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Certainly our world is maybe more polarized than I've ever seen it in my life. And even, for the topic of racism, one of my largest encouragements for parents, talk to your children about what they're learning in school. I know that as I've interacted with some people in our community, they are concerned. They are concerned of their children coming home and saying, this is what we were exposed to today. And so parents, I urge you, in our house, it's dinner time. Dinner time is kind of our family core. We're around food, we're talking. What did you learn today? And it's really important. Parents, please be aware of what your children are learning. Some of the curriculum deserves respectful challenge up to the state level. Not all of our teachers have the same viewpoint on many things. And so we need to be engaged. We need to be listening. We need to be asking questions. Outside the room, I have a book table, and I encourage you to stop by afterwards. One of the books I have out there is from Ben Carson. And if you know the story of Ben Carson, his mother was brilliant, even though she wasn't literate. She would assign her boys book reports, even though she couldn't read them. Ben Carson ended up as a fantastic neurosurgeon. Amazing. Thanks.
All right. Question number 4. We're going to start with you, Mr. I'm not going to say it right again. Endo. How do you believe, I'm going to say WCSD, I figured it out, Williamsville Central School District, should balance the desires of special ed families to have their children attend school within Williamsville school buildings with the existing space constraints and the concern that adding special ed classes will result in larger class sizes for general education students? Let me say that again.
Yes, please.
How do you believe that WCSD should balance the desires of special ed families who have their children attend school within Williamsville school buildings with the existing space constraints and the concern that adding special ed classes will result in larger class sizes for general education students?
That's a great question, and I understand the concerns, but I believe that this should be a priority. We've recently implemented a diversity, equity, inclusion guideline, I guess, for lack of a better word, and getting special education children in our schools is part of the inclusion aspect of that. We need to promote further inclusion of children with special needs. I'm, currently going through this where my daughter is not a part of this. Well, she is a part of the district, but she's outsourced to a school, and there's challenges with that. The concerns are being raised that because of behavioral issues, my daughter can't be a part of one of our elementary schools, and my response to that is we need to figure out a way to make that happen. And I understand there are constraints, but now's the time. We've recently had a review from the advisory council, special education advisory council, if that's the right word, where they said that our district is facing ethical issues in terms of not providing the proper resources for our children with special needs. And as an attorney, I hear the word non-ethical, and that's scary. And we need to address it, and we need to make it a top priority, and figure out a way to bring our special education children into the district and keep them in the district from elementary all the way till they graduate. Thanks.
So I actually printed up the special education review. I don't know if anybody has looked at it, but it's 87 pages. And so it's not something that I am super familiar with, but I have been reading it and learning. And again, I have to do a deeper dive. I don't want to answer something that I can't really speak to, but I will say, I know that the district is working on this. I know at the last PTSA meeting, Stu had mentioned that that there are going to be some different classrooms. I had it written down somewhere, but they are adding an 8-1, and I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but 811. So I know that from what I have been reading and hearing, that there are strides being taken to make sure that this is happening. But again, I have to. It's a lot of papers.
Just continuing on what she just said, yes. The district in the proposed budget has a budget allocation of $509,520 for 2 high school and 1 elementary school 811 classrooms. And they're going to also be having additional behavior techs on contract hired in the proposed budget. So that was the one thing you're missing, I guess. Yes, I agree with Endel. This is an equitable issue. We have to provide for our kids with special needs in our school district. The district's goal is to eventually bring all kids back to our schools, all special needs kids back to our schools. But it's going to take a little while because the needs are different and some more than others. And regarding classroom sizes, at the present time, with the exception of, I think, Dodge Elementary second grade, they're all within the regular class, recommended class sizes. And I think the district should make accommodations for special need kids, and adding classrooms where needed should be a priority.
With a question related to should we educate our special education students inside or outside the district? Any of you who know my history, it's one of the first things I advocated for, because again, our students who were special ed students educated outside the district, have long bus rides. They're out of our supervision, and I got that from when I was a high school teacher and coach in a different district with 7 high schools. And my first year as a teacher, they brought back all of the students from the state school for the deaf, the state school for the blind, and I had most of those students along the way. But the issue really is, do we take care of our own students, or kind of it's like the outsource versus in-house? And it's one is an economic issue. We see that in bus transportation. You know, we've had it for many years, then it's outsourced, the prices go up. You know, I look at our professional teachers who work for us in our district. They're highly trained professionals, they're skilled, they work with us, and, you know, they should be teaching our students. I know on occasions we send students with these Summit, other places, based on the individual needs, but I would say, and I've always advocated for, as much as we can, let's educate all of our students in our district with our teachers in our buildings, because bus rides are long and it's not fair to not take care of your own. So that would be my viewpoint, that we should take care of our students here.
I personally really do not have much expertise in this particular area, nor have I been exposed a lot to it. However, I would commend, for example, the music department within the district, where some of the choir concerts, clearly there are some kids that have special needs, but I think it's terrific that they are on stage with the rest of the choir and are able to participate and are welcomed and are included in the making of music. And so in that regard, I'm really pleased. As for some of the specifics of class size, I think, again, being an outsider and not having read extensively on the topic, I think as a district, we need to be wise on how do we best educate and equip to the maximum of each of our children's potential. And sometimes I think that probably will be in distinct groups where those kids can interact better within a more limited space than perhaps a general classroom. And so as for the specifics on it, I just can't address it, but those are at least some kind of thoughts and comments.
Sometimes it's good to be last because you can listen to everyone else. I would have to just, reiterate some of the things some of my colleagues here have said. Yes, I truly believe that it is an equity issue that our special education students are educated in a home environment as much as is possible that meets their needs. And so, as Dr. Lippman said, there are times we want to be looking at, are we meeting a particular student's needs? But for us as a school board to make a priority to maintain class sizes and incorporate our special education students within our schools is definitely one of our top priorities. And we need to be sure that we're allocating the budgetary resources to do that. Sometimes that may mean doing some mobile units at a school if we need to do that in order to enhance our classroom space. But I think that's worth our dime.
All right. This next question, we're going to start with you, Dawn.
Okay.
Okay. As a school board member, what would you do to enhance gifted and talented services are maintained or enhanced from kindergarten to 12th grade? What would you do to ensure that the gifted and talented services are maintained or enhanced?
So it's funny because when people find out that you're interested in running for the board, they really start talking about everything. And this was actually an area that somebody was talking to me about. And it's a very smart, but they were not in any of the gifted and talented. So I don't really know, again, like what there is. One of the concerns I know from a parent was that their child goes to the UB math program, which is great, but it's at an out-of-pocket cost. And that is something that, again, maybe everybody can't do that. I don't know the exact dollar amount, but it was pretty significant. And when you add all those years. So I guess I would, again, I don't want to answer something that I don't know enough about, but just hearing that led me to believe that I guess we have to look into what else we can offer. Because there are a lot of kids that do fall in that category that probably need a little extra stimulation, if you will. So go to you.
Again, I was one of those parents who went and asked accommodation for UB math students. It costs $400 a semester. To answer your question, yeah. But I was told very clearly at the time that UB Math is an after-school program. It doesn't come under the purview of school transportation or anything like that. Anyway.
Discussion.
Yes, we gifted the programming, I think, is a part of SEPSA too. And the school does has a lot of programs for gifted kids, like right from middle school where they have accelerated programs in math and science, and have so many AP courses in high school. Like I haven't seen so many choices high school kids have for AP classes. And if kids and in addition to that, I think as far as I know, East schools have collaborations with universities like Syracuse and UB for additional courses. So the opportunities do exist, but I understand with the changing landscape, technology keeps changing, and every year there are always more opportunities to learn. There are more opportunities to provide more challenging courses for our kids. And I think the school administration is working actively with UB to do something the next year on AI or something like that. It's in discussion. So as a school board, we support all initiatives that the administrations do to provide extra stimulation to our gifted kids so they don't get bored in classrooms. They are actively involved and they are able to realize their potential in our schools.
Hello. If you look at the idea of gifted and talented, it's a whole interesting area, and it kind of ties into equity, looking at the opportunities that individual students might have. Sometimes in the old days, if you said, oh, that person is gifted and talented and they should be advanced, they give you an extra book to read. It's like everybody does 4, you could do 5 because you're smarter. But it really isn't that and shouldn't be that. It's really an enrichment to what students do on an ongoing basis. I mean, our district for a time, and I think they do in some schools, had dedicated gifted and talented teachers who would work with students on a pull-out basis to provide that enrichment opportunities. I think over time, with the loss of some of those teachers, it has become more of a total class. So you would bring in somebody to all classes, so all students would have the opportunity for enrichment. I think there needs to be a balance of that. There are some students who need to kind of be away and have this time and space. And all students benefit from things that help them think outside the box and practice skills and be creative and do the things. I know that because, we have in Buffalo State, in the office of the floor below mine is the center. We used to call it the Center for Studies in Creativity. Now it's called the Center for Applied Imagination. But it's how do you look at an issue and go through the creative problem-solving process, and how do you look at things? And it's all part of enhancing all of our students' perspective and their individual growth, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I think the balance of gifted and talented, raise up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it. And one of the things that drew us to Williamsville when we moved into the Buffalo metro area, frankly, we looked at the listing of the 95 districts and we picked the top 3 and said, let's look at real estate in those top 3. And my daughter, who graduated in 2022, took a lot of AP, took SUPA courses. And I'm thankful that the district makes those available. That's terrific. But at the same way, I would actually say some of the gifting for gift and talent maybe is mechanical mindset. Some kids, you sit them down and they just figure out how to put stuff together. And so I would actually say that gifted and talented, we need to continue to reinforce BOCES. We need to continue to have shop classes available. Some kids are wired to put it together, take it apart. And so that gifted and talented, I think we need to keep our mind open, because if nobody knows how to fix stuff or invent new things, we'll all be worse off for it. And so again, it all needs to fall within budget. We need to do what we can afford to do. Again, I think the AP courses are great for kids that can push for it, and kids that maybe aren't wired that way, right? Society needs good citizens with all kinds of different skill sets. And so that gifted and talented may be our next mechanic.
Yes, I think the idea behind our gifted and talented programming that we have currently is that every child is gifted, and we want to enhance that. We want to help them identify their gifts and really grow them. As I heard one of our gifted and talented teachers speak about the 4 levels of the gifted and talented program, starting with the enrichment for everyone. This is something that everyone can do. And we have our STEAM program in our elementary schools for that really spark children's curiosity about science and getting an understanding of the scientific process and creative thinking and problem solving. And then we have some small group and at home kinds of activities, which might be that UB math program because it's outside of school time. And then there are some smaller groups where the gifted teacher in the elementary schools goes in and partners with the teacher and pulls out some kids to expand on something that they're doing in a special way. And in a very rare case, they may work with 1 or 2 children, like the kindergartners who come into school reading at a 3rd grade level already. So we need to make adjustments for them. I think the gifted and talented ideology is that we need to expand that. I would agree with what Phil said. We need to look at beyond AP classes and looking at those BOCES programs and the CalSpan Institute that we have access to, that our students have access to. So there are lots of ways to be gifted, and everybody should have access to that.
With regards to our gifted and talented services, I think first we need to understand that, these programs aren't federally protected or funded like special education students are. So, I think the first step to enhance our gifted and talented services is to go out there and advocate for our gifted and talented students and get the funding that we need in order to make these programs better. That means reaching out to legislators and putting laws in place to make our gifted and talented programs better. We need to be more equitable with these programs. There's work currently being done to educate our parents and students on what we offer here with regards to gifted and talented services. And there's a lot of good stuff going on right now. At the most recent community forum, there was an issue raised about how we can make it a little bit more equitable. And this issue was raised, and it's my understanding that a committee's being put in place to identify some of the issues that some of the parents raised and try to fix up some things that are a little, I guess, not good right now. But there's a lot of good. There's a video that was just recently put up on our website about the gifted and talented services provided to our schools. And, when you watch that, it makes you happy. And we got to keep in mind with our gifted and talented services that, we got to be equitable, but realize again that it's not, equity doesn't equal equality. Thanks.
Okay, question number 6, Dr. Singh. This is another, if you're an incumbent or if you're not an incumbent. So as an incumbent, what did you propose during the budget process to reduce the tax levy? And if you were not an incumbent, what would you have proposed and studied during the budget process to reduce the tax levy?
Wow, this is just after our budget presentation.
Yeah.
Well, this year we have a 2.97% increase in our tax levy, which is still below the mandated, the recommended state limit. And last year we had more money from the government, so we only had a 2% increase, and this year we have 2.97% increase. So, and we have started so many new programs in our schools. We have learning labs, which was funded with the post-COVID ESSR funds, and now they're no longer funded. So we have to continue funding such programs, and we're having more funding for special education programs. So these are the things that we cannot remove from our budget. So if you ask me if you can reduce the tax levy, I would say this is the most that our financial wizard of our school district was able to do. And to sustain the programs we have and to add additional programs for our students, it's difficult to reduce the tax levy to a point where we have no increase in tax levy, because there's also the question of CPI, consumer index, where there's inflation going on. So everything's going to cost more. So there's always going to be some amount of inflation factored into the budget. But if our school has to maintain its standards and its opportunities for all its kids, then we need to provide them the resources for them to succeed. So we need to have a reasonable increase in tax levy.
Dr. Singh was very accurate with that. Any organization, a school district, has fixed costs, and those don't change over time, but they do go up. So the cost of things has gone up. So we have to keep that in mind. We have the contractual obligations and all of the things that we routinely have to pay. Historically, I brought forth some suggestions. This year, I didn't make any specific concrete suggestions to say, let's modify this or let's modify that, because we know many things have gone up. The cost of utilities, the cost of bus transportation, everything is really going up. And if you, as you do budgeting in your household, you do have your reserves that you can use. You want to save some reserves for other things. But the real idea is, I think, in this year's budget climate, where we had extra funding historically from the federal government, that's been replaced by foundation aid from the state, that I think we are where we are. I did not make any suggestions to make significant reductions.
Yeah, this is actually an interesting topic because I've had 2 or 3 email exchanges even yesterday and today trying to understand where is all of that forecasted interest income coming from. With some of the materials that were put out on the district budget, I can't quote the specific number, but there is significant interest income planned. And so my question to the district was, how much money do we have in reserves? One of the things I know is that, and even here within my binder, last year, right, audit shows district did not manage reserves properly from New York State. And I know that the district responded and pushed back on it, but I'd like to know, and I still haven't been answered. I don't recall the gentleman's name. I was exchanging email with today within the finance team, asking, show me that cash balance listing. He said it's on the site. I looked, he pointed me to the same place I was looking. I don't know if he has access to stuff I don't, probably, but I'd like to see those cash balances. And frankly, I think our district should understand what those cash balances are, because even in my experience, whether even for some professional organizations that I'm a part of, they collect membership dues and the balance just rises. What are you going to do with that money? And so I think that's always a function that we need to discuss. We need to understand. And I really hope that in the next day or two, I'm going to get a more informative answer of here are the accounts, here are the cash balances that we have. Because ultimately, if it's millions and millions, why do we need those millions and millions? Maybe we should be bringing taxes down for our citizens.
We are not laying off teachers this year, as some of our school districts are. It's important to us to maintain the programs that we have. The only way to reduce the tax levy is to cut something. And there's no one here that wants to see any program cut. No, I did not push to have a reduction in our tax levy this year. I could not see where we would do that without cutting something that someone would feel would be crucial, that I would feel would be crucial, because we would be taking away opportunities from some students somewhere. It always ends up impacting the students in the end, and that's our prime concern. I think I'll just leave it there. For the future, for this year's budget, we are going into our reserves. We have that's very much a part of our budget for next year in order to maintain a balanced budget. So we are dipping into those reserves and doing that in a judicious pattern so that we do not totally deplete them. So,
So I think Williamsville is the gold standard for all school districts. We have an excellent education platform. We're one of the best, if not the best, in the Western New York region. And I think in order to maintain that, need to keep the tax levy as it is. I think we have to understand that there's been talks about our foundation aid, which is, the high, the highest state funding that school districts believe may be getting reduced in the next years. And I know there's been efforts made by the board to, urge our governor to not do that. But like Ms. Poulin said, there's several districts out there that have laid teachers off and are not in the best financial situation. And I think based on everything I've seen, we are. And I think the right decisions are being made. I think, there was an audit, but that was struck down as a misunderstanding and not a thorough evaluation of everything that's going on, and not keeping in mind that COVID affected a lot of things and made things, different than in past years. But in order to maintain our educational excellence, I think we need to keep the tax levy as is. Obviously, I didn't make that recommendation because I'm not on the board, but I probably would say that we need to keep it that way and to maintain our excellence.
So we've all talked about, how we've moved into this district because, that, the school system, that's a very important thing. And we talked about how Williamsville offers so many things and we're so fortunate. So again, not being on the board, I didn't have anything to do with that, but I can't think of anything that I would want to cut back either. I know I've dealt with Mr. Matursky several times just throughout the years for various reasons. And he is amazing. He knows his stuff, and he is honest, and just, I really can't say enough about him. So I wouldn't question, for me, I don't have any questions. And then in terms of having to cut things back, like you said, with teachers, I have friends that are in the Hamburg district, and it's so sad, it's affecting the teachers, their families, these kids that, are losing their teachers, and we're not in that situation, thank God. And so I really can't think of anything that I would want to change. That was the question. Okay.
Okay. All right, we got time for one more question before our closing statements. So we're back to Dr. Lippman.
Excuse me?
With the rapidly advancement of artificial intelligence, how do you think AI should be incorporated in the curriculum moving forward?
Good question. I know some of my colleagues went
Yesterday.
Yeah, because I called to see about joining in, but since all of you are going to be there, I feel I could catch it on the rebound. AI is growing in schools. There's articles on both sides of it. We see that at the college level. When I have an assignment, I always say, did a student write it? Did artificial intelligence write it? It all goes back to the idea of common sense, who has the common sense in this situation. The idea is AI is part of the educational picture today. I know at the state level, as you know from the professional development activities, that they are in discussion. I am sure, and I don't know if in our professional development in the district, they've added AI components yet. But the key thing is AI is here. We need to be prepared because our students will be working or are working with it. Our teachers, I'm sure, are also working with it. Us older generation people still use our head as much as we can. But, we know AI is out there to enhance many things. But again, isn't any new technology, it has its positives and negatives. And if you do a great amount of reading, you'll see articles on both sides of the equation. But we know that it's here. We know that schools will have to have policies and deal with those issues, and we will.
Right?
Yeah, artificial intelligence is really pretty crazy, the capabilities that it brings. And I think even as we talk about this topic, We need to be thinking about it from the teacher's vantage. We need to think about it from the student's vantage. We need to think about it even from the moral vantage of, as Dr. Lippman referred to, our kids writing their papers, Chat GPT, give me a 3rd grade paper on, or give me a 9th grade paper on whatever. And I would encourage the teachers within the district to put in front of the kids, do your own work. That's how you're going to develop your mind if you do the research. I mean, even comparing schools now compared to when I was a kid. When I was a kid, you pretty much were going to the library, picking books off the shelf, digging through to try to assemble things. Just simply with the internet now, it's amazing how fast, how easy you can gather information. And so I still think it really comes down to that instructional narrative from the teacher to say, do your research, do your work, because at the end of the day, if you put in the work, you're going to get the benefit. You're going to be smarter than that kid next to you or competing for the same job, because you know what it's like to do the legwork. I also know of actually a friend of mine who has done some software development for academics to help teachers identify plagiarism from AI. And so we just need to be cautious. We need to be wise and look at it from all dimensions, but it can bring some pretty powerful capabilities.
As Dr. Lippman said, yes, myself and another board member did attend yesterday a virtual 3-hour workshop on artificial intelligence and the new frontier for school policy workshop, which was very good and very eye-opening and caused me to think in lots of different ways. One of the facilitator for the session started out with people were saying, I want to be in front of the curve. And she said, there's no way for us to even be on the curve because it's too far ahead of us already. We're way behind already. AI has been with us in many, many ways for a long time, from, autocorrect on your text to Alexa in your living room or wherever you have her. But I think what most of the time people are focusing on in education is Chat GPT and things like that students are using. The capabilities of Chat GPT for teachers and for students and for administrators are momentous. It is very powerful. The question is always what can someone choose to do with it? And like anything else, you can choose to do good or you can choose to do not so good. So the important thing for us as educators is to begin to focus on teaching ourselves first, lots of professional development first on how this can be used, and then teaching our young people how to use this as a tool. It may mean also that our teachers are going to have to rethink how they do assignments. So are the teachers going to have the students go home and do this assignment with Chat GPT and everybody else? Or are they going to have them do it in front of them?
So yeah, I agree. AI is rapidly advancing, and it's a little scary how fast it is advancing. I think in our classrooms, it should be used as a resource, as a tool. It shouldn't, replace our traditional forms of teaching. I recently, and I mentioned this earlier, I recently graded essays for scholarships that are being offered by our PTSA council. And, they had a software in place to review these essays and identify which ones may have been generated by AI. And it's funny that there were a few that were identified as being written by some sort of AI platform. And surprisingly, those essays were the lower scored essays. So, I guess we could have some sort of optimism that maybe it might not be as great as it's made out to be, and try and keep our traditional forms of teaching, which have worked and will continue to work, and put, procedures in place to identify students that are taking advantage of it and their main source of education. We got to educate ourselves on it and go to seminars and be informed on what's going on with AI, so that we can tackle it appropriately.
I'm a recruiter and I help people find jobs. I look at resumes. One of the things that I did, my colleague and I went to UB and we met with a business fraternity, and we talked about all of this, and we talked about resumes, and we talked about just everything, and how to look for a job and how to communicate, because a lot of kids really don't know how to talk. They're texting and they're, but that's another issue. So as I was reading thank you notes, some kids were sending me thank you notes, and I just said to the one, I said, I just have to ask you, did you write this or is this ChatGPT? And he said, oh, I used AI. And I said, I know. I said, I can tell. And as an employer, huge red flag. I would just not. So it was a really good teaching moment. And he said, I am so sorry, give me another chance. And he wrote me another thank you note, and I could tell. I think teachers can tell. You can really tell. I mean, your kids. And if all of a sudden somebody that speaks a certain way comes in with this beautiful, they know. So I don't. It can be used as an interesting tool. So I do use it too. I was redoing a resume and I redid it, and then I put it in AI, and it made some changes, but it doesn't take away, it does take away the personal level. So I would never look to it as something to use on a daily basis, because it doesn't talk like a person. It talks like a computer, and it takes away the human element. So I guess I don't see it being a huge problem, because I think teachers are smart enough to realize what's ChatGPT and what's not.
I agree with almost all speakers ahead of me, but I have a different story to say. This year in East High School, one of our schools here, we have one student who has written his own AI-based software to identify obscene words in, I think, 92 languages. That is an example of students using AI in a positive way to harness their gifted talents in programming or understanding of computer science, and making something out of something for themselves. AI is not going to go away. It's not. No matter how much you wish it will go away, it's not going to go away. You can't put your head in the sand and say it's going to go away tomorrow. So this is something schools cannot ignore, school boards cannot ignore. It's like what Maureen said. We're just catching the tail end of it. To get ahead of it, I don't think it's possible. And sometimes if you can't fight it, you have to join it. You have to learn more about it. You have to educate yourself about it, and possibly come up with a good school policy on how you can use AI in schools. There will always be ChatGPTs, and keep in mind, no matter how good software you make, there will be one better than that to create a better solution for the kids. So you'll always play catch up, and catch up is not the solution. You have to educate everyone to say what is doable, what is not doable in schools. Have a policy, have a regulation. So everyone has some standards they have to follow. Teachers can use it, students can use it, but there should be guidelines. The board's role is to provide those guidelines. That's what we should do as a board. We should educate ourselves first, like Maureen did. She attended symposiums, learn about it, and then we can come up with a policy that can regulate it. This is not something that's going to go away, so we should get ahead of it.
Great. Well, that was 7 questions. It's getting 9 o'clock almost. So we'll start with our closing statements. We have 3 minutes. Each have 3 minutes for a closing statement. And we're going to go in reverse order, which
Again,
Dr. Singh go first.
uh,
So go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm just going to continue from where I left off from my opening speech. When I ran for board 3 years ago, my priorities were to provide additional learning supports to that was post-COVID, mental health supports, and DEI and environmental education. Now, 3 years later, I can see as a district, we made progress on providing additional supports for learning with learning labs, wellness and mental health, as you can see in our new code of conduct, DEI, special education, and we also started work on environmental education. As a board, we have reviewed policies, approved policies, and made budgetary allocations that support these initiatives. Some of these initiatives were actually from the community-based responses at our community forums. And this is why we need to continue community forums. Anyway, and so this is why I'm requesting our community members to continue to provide feedback to the board and be actively involved in our schools. Join the PTA. Change doesn't happen overnight. We have to keep working at it. And this is a quote I heard some time back, and I really believe in this, a quote by Maya Angelou. Do the best you can till you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Again, I don't want to take too much time. I want to thank the PTSA Council and the WISE Voters, League of Voters, for the opportunity to present my ideas and have a discussion with my fellow candidates. I request you all to go out and vote on May 21st on the budget, as well as for the candidates. And if you're voting for candidates, please vote 6A.
Yes, thank you for being here and for moderating this. And thank you, Sarah. And I wanted to, again, just reiterate that this is something that I would take very seriously, very personally, I should say, because it is a personal issue. Again, I live in this district. My kids go to school in this district. And I really look forward to having things that I can say, that I helped accomplish. So I guess this is me. I am honest. I care, and I look forward to just learning and really just learning as much as I can and helping make a difference and just being that liaison for the teachers, the students, and the community. So thank you.
I would once again like to thank the League of Women Voters and PTSA Council for hosting this event. I would also like to thank the other candidates for being here tonight and to everyone for joining us. Everyone here has ran for school board before, and it is great to see that people care enough to continue to put themselves out there to support our children. In my closing, I would like to discuss the current racial demographics of our district and more specifically the board. The current board is comprised of 9 individuals that each support and represent our district as a whole. Yet of these 9 members, there's only 1 minority. Of the 8 white board members, there are 4 male and 4 female, a good balance if you are white. In our district, approximately 30% of our students are minorities, yet only 11% of our board is minority. With this upcoming election, there is a possibility that this number could be 0. At best, this number can be 22%, still less than the percentage of students that are minority. To add to this issue, only approximately 6% of our staff are minorities. In preparation for tonight's event, I watched several past candidate nights and other public forums where the issue of diversity within our leadership was repeatedly discussed. Everyone acknowledged the problem and proposed meaningful solutions, yet not enough has been done. I am a minority with a unique and diverse background. Voting for me is a crucial step in accomplishing the goal of becoming more diverse in this district. I do not want to come off as pulling the race card in hopes of being elected. My credentials speak for themselves. I am an attorney at law, one of the most vigorous career paths. I am bound by the highest ethical standards and swore an oath of duty, trust, and loyalty, an oath that I will abide by if elected to the board. I am also actively involved with the district, holding several leadership roles and representing other classes of underrepresented individuals, including special needs students and their parents. Let's not maintain the status quo with this upcoming election. Let's progress forward in the manner we can all agree is necessary for the continued success of this district. As I stated last year, if elected to the board, any decision I would make would always keep the best interests of the children in my mind. At the end of the day, that is what most important. I would work extremely hard as a board member and be an independent thinker. I would encourage the board to be an independent party and remind the board that our job is not to run the district, but to ensure that it runs effectively and efficiently. My name is Indel Suna, and I'm candidate 4A on the ballot. I hope to have your vote on May 21st. Thank you.
I also want to thank the PTSA Council and the League of Wise Voters for being with us and moderating tonight. Thank you. As I prepared to graduate from college to begin my career in education, we were asked to write a personal statement of philosophy of education. And at that time I wrote, "It is my belief that every child can learn, and it is my responsibility as an educator to find a way for each child to succeed." I would still write that same philosophy today. The past 3 years, I've had the privilege of serving the community as a Williamsville Central School District School Board member. I'm deeply invested in the success of our students and uphold the profession of our teachers. During my tenure on the school board, we've made significant strides in improving educational outcomes, enhancing school safety, and promoting equity and inclusion throughout our district. We're striving to ensure every student has access to a high-quality education and the support they need to thrive, but the work is not finished. I'm running for re-election because for the past 2 years, in my role as liaison to the superintendent's inter-high school advisory group, I've had the opportunity to listen to our students and have heard their stories. Their stories of discrimination, their stories of stress, their stories of pressure, their stories about lack of sleep, as well as their hopes and dreams. I'm running for re-election for them. I commit to continuing to raise student voice, to ensure every student has equity and opportunities that will enable them to achieve those hopes and dreams, and to feel valued, included, and that they belong. I'll continue to bring my years of experience, expertise, and passion to the table, working collaboratively with all stakeholders to address the challenges ahead, whether they be from AI or budgets or teacher shortages, wherever they come from. I'm always going to be looking on the lookout for how can we be better. It is my hope, if re-elected, to continue to work together to prioritize the success and well-being of every student in our community, remaining steadfast to our commitment to excellence, equity, and inclusion, and that the Williamsville Central Schools remain exemplars of excellence and opportunity for generations to come, so that more people, like the people sitting at this table, will continue to choose to move to Williamsville for the school district. Thank you for listening, and I would appreciate your vote for candidate 3A, Maureen Poulin, on May 21st.
Thank you for your engagement tonight. As we close, some quotes, curriculum, and phrases for your consideration. Quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed." Declaration of Independence. The most frequent concern that parents raise to me is that the morals being taught are not good for their children. If it's not right, we must fix it. Let's pivot to biology curriculum. Here's a quote from Charles Darwin in his On the Origin of Species, Chapter 6, and I quote, "Organs of extreme perfection and complication, to suppose that the eye, with all its inimitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, for admitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration, could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest possible degree." End quote. Think about it. We need to teach evolution as a theory and deeply study the amazing design that surrounds us. Phrase, laws of nature and nature's God. This phrase from the Declaration of Independence advises us and warns us, align with the laws of nature and we are in harmony with it. Violate it and there will be lasting consequences to pay. History curriculum. Our history curriculum should be accurate and honest, recognizing courage and contributions to society while acknowledging our human failures. Christopher Columbus is an example of this. He was a bold explorer setting out against the odds, quote, by sailing south out of Europe, hanging a right at the Canary Islands into the unknown for God and Queen Isabella, end quote. This is a positive example of courage. Was he a perfect man? No, not by a long shot. But let's recognize courage. We need more bold explorers. One last phrase. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
Good.
Go ahead.
I'm tired. Oh, sorry. Everybody's had a quote. I'll put one in. And all of my biographical things are on the website. But from my hometown of Fall River, Massachusetts, Dr. Irving Fradkin said, "The riches of a nation is not its oil and its gold, but the minds of its young people." And I agree with that, which is why I would like to continue my time on the Board of Education. I add stability and experience to the board. I work with a number of wonderful people, and just like the people out here. But again, I'm here for one reason, which is students. It's about that we all focus on the mission of our district to develop the unique potential and character each student does possess. Why am I different? Well, I guess, as I would say, I have a good head and I have a good heart, or a big heart. But I've proven my knowledge and experience over the last 12 years. I have more successful board experience than my colleagues who are up here today. No slight intended. But in dealing with critical academic and financial issues during these difficult times, I don't think there's any substitute for the experience I've had and for those who want to join to catch up on that learning curve. Let's see, that's a good thing to say. How about this? I view quality education as critical to characters development and individual academic development. Our education system must continue to develop and strengthen all students' academic, occupational, psychological, and social skills. I do what I know that leads to the best success, which is to make decisions that best impact students. Our future does look bright as we look at what we have going forward. As I've said before, I have served on a leadership role on this board. I've been the board president twice, the board president, vice president twice. I've been involved in adding a variety of new programs in a variety of areas. I've been on that side of the table, and I've been on this side of the table. This is more enjoyable. I do want to recognize one of my former board mates, Michael Schmidt, who's here tonight, and I appreciate you always being out there. Again, our future looks bright. What I do want to finish it up with, I'm doing this for my mother because we used to talk at night, but, I don't like to blow my own horn, but she would say, do this. So in honor of my mother, as you know, or may not know, I was selected for Who's Who in America. And that should be noted, as the certificate says, inclusion is based on possessing professional integrity, demonstrating outstanding achievement in the field, and making innumerable contributions to society as a whole. I'm not done yet, so I ask that you vote for number 1 on the ballot with one of your votes. I'm number 1 in board experience, number 1 in board knowledge, number 1 in leadership, and I thank all of you who've hung on this late, and thank you, sir.
Well, thank you all. Thank you all very much for coming to the league for help with your candidate form tonight. And I too will reiterate that to make sure you vote for these school board members and the district budget on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the Williamsville North High School gym. And there's also some material in the back. Don't forget to vote in November and early voting. There's some cards with dates and times on there. And for general election information, the league has a vote 411 on the website. So I encourage everybody to check that out, to check out the different candidates. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are done.